Okay.
Okay, so welcome to this Travel Tip Tuesday, and this is the third one we've done now, Dave.
Yes, yep.
I'm kind of hoping that we'll have a few more on this one, because we are going to announce the winner of the competition at the end of it as well. So hopefully there'll be a few coming on to get the results of the competition as well. So that will be ideal if they all come on as well and have a listen.
Let it be me.
Let it be you. Yeah, well, you like a bit of yoga, don't you? So
yeah, I love a bit of yoga. You know
that. So we're gonna do the announcement of the winner of the competition at the end of today's edition of our Travel Tip Tuesday. We're going to be doing these every week. Obviously, at the minute, Dave and I aren't traveling anywhere, so we can kind of commit to Tuesdays at 12 o'clock to come on in. Some might say talk a load of rubbish. Some might say that they get something from it. So, so the idea of these Tuesday sessions are that we're just discussing adventure travel trips, giving you some hints and tips, and just talking about different bits and pieces on the trips to try and give you some either inspiration or some hints of things you can take with you or things to do on your trips as well. So that's the idea of these Tuesday sessions. We've done one on what bags to take. We've done one on altitude so far. And today we're going to kind of talk about things you can do yourself to make your trip easier, look after yourself, look after your body, and go from there, really. So anyone that's done a trip with Dave will know he is the hand sanitizer man. Like, he is so on it with the hand sanitizer, making sure that people have used that. And none such as now with what's currently going on as well about making sure we are looking after yourselves. If you haven't seen it in our last edition, well, it's the current edition because the new one gets sent out tomorrow, of our Bucket Lister magazine. If you haven't got this, you can subscribe to it on our website. But this is the last edition that came out kind of last month or the month before. But there is a really good section in here on health and travel and how to look after yourself. And we will be going through some of that today. So I think to start with, I'm going to hand over to Dave and let you start, and then I'll chip in as in when. So Dave, great. Carry on.
Thanks Keith. We will get to hand sanitizer at some point, but I've left it a little while. What I'm going to do is start where I think is the most important place is, and that's with the feet, and work up the body, and we can just make sure everyone's fine. A short trek, you might get away with it for a little while, but a long trek you won't. It's really important before you actually get on the trek is that you've tried on your boots and you've cut your nails. I don't want to, it's not a criticism, but at times I've been on a trek and after day two, it says, oh, my toes are really hurting. And then, have you got any nail clippers, Dave? And I think it's just the most basic thing, but just cut your nails and make sure your feet and your toes are in good condition before you actually put those boots on the trek and start walking. There's a lot of advice about, as soon as you get a hot spot, your feet are rubbing, you stop. And, if you tell me your feet are a bit sore, we will stop and boots off and let's see what we can do to alleviate the problem. But actually, a lot of the problems can be forestalled by actually sorting out your feet before you arrive. So if you've got rough bits on your feet, if you've got long toenails or a catching nail, please sort it out before you come. It's dead easy to do. And actually, it just makes things so much easier for you later on. So that's the first thing. So that's before you even get on the plane, really. But don't do it in the airport, please. Next thing is you'll have a first aid kit with you, your own first aid kit, but it's very important to carry, and I always carry some, all the guides do, but Compeed plasters, which are specifically designed to deal with blisters. And you put them on and then you just forget them until they actually fall off. But having a supply of those, the small ones and the larger ones. They haven't got to be the Compeed make. I know Boots make them, and I think other companies do as well. But the Compeed ones work really well, and they will stop your feet becoming red raw. A tip, I mentioned it last week, and I'm going to mention it again. And I know there's some different colleagues I've climbed with and all the rest of it. Some people do have hot feet, just have hot, sweaty feet. They can't help it. And those feet seem to be the ones that are most prone to getting sore. One tip, and I do it now, and I haven't got hot feet, is when you pack all your socks, and we talked about packing last week, didn't we? When you pack the socks, turn them inside out and powder them with some talcum powder before you even put them in your bag. And, you know, that day when you wake up in the morning, your feet are a bit sore, you take out a freshly powdered pair of socks, your feet will be warm, they'll be dry, and you just feel great, particularly when you're getting slightly more tired towards the end of a long trek. So those are my tips for feet. Get your nails sorted out beforehand, carry Compeed blisters, and have, you know, try this powdered sock idea. I thought it was a bit namby-pamby, but it's actually brilliant. So I'm assuming you've got your boots checked, but I know we'll probably talk about boots in another talk. But that's for feet. Okay,
just a quick one there on socks is making sure you get socks that actually fit your feet. And I know that might sound like a completely obvious thing to do, but I did have one participant on a Tootcow trek once who actually went into Go Outdoors or one of those shops, and she went and bought, they had a special offer on socks, so she bought 6 pairs of socks. The only problem was they were size 11 to 13 and she was a size 4. So these socks were massive on her, and of course all that did was caused her the worst blisters ever. So, you know, although you don't think of it, actually some people do wear socks that are too big. And I always say that actually when you go and try a new pair of boots on, take the socks in that you like to wear as well, so you know that they actually fit your feet. So that's my little tip on there, is make sure you buy socks that actually fit. Okay,
thanks, Keith. Let's move up then and get to knees. Now, being an old boy, my knees are starting to wear out a bit, but I do meet quite a few trekkers who certainly, again, I've took perhaps more of the longer treks, but even Mount Tootcow, when you've got you have a long downhill on the final day on the trek, find that the knees start to ache and hurt with the jarring coming down. And a couple of ways. One is preventative, I think, really, and that is if you can or you do walk with poles, or you're considering getting poles, that's probably the best time to use them, is actually coming downhill. I just tend to use one because I've got one knee aches a bit, and it just takes the weight off it when you're probing out in front, and the weight comes through your body rather than straight through your knee. So poles can be really good for that. You can also get, and I've not used them, but we have trekkers who swear by them. They're called patella straps, patella being Latin for knee. And these straps are just a strap that go underneath your knee, and they seem to, for some people, stop aching. So knees, it's about actually preventing them becoming aching, and you'll find it most on long downhills. So that's my advice to that is either poles or try a patella strap. Again, I would try before you go, because if it's just going to rub or not be uncomfortable, then it's a bit, useless, really. Okay, your knees are good, aren't they, Keith?
My knees are good now. They never were, but yeah, my knees are a lot better than they used to be. But the one problem with knees is a lot of the time the issue isn't actually a knee issue. The issue is somewhere else, and the joint that ends up hurting is the knee. So people actually think they have a knee problem, but it's not actually the knee that is the problem. It generally is from somewhere else, and the actual pain comes out in the knee. Before your trek, to think about things to think about is what I started doing kind of 4 or 5 years ago is going to the gym and and doing some deadlifts and squats, because the problem is we tend to favor one leg more than the other. So you tend to find that actually you end up with a stronger glute on the left or a stronger quad on your right, and then your body prefers that leg, and that's generally where your knee pain will come from. So actually to do some compound lifting and to be lifting where you are strengthening both muscles at the opposite muscles at the same time is a really good tip for not getting achy joints in the long run. So that's kind of my sort of tip really for getting ready before a trip, is actually, if you can get to the gym and you don't know what to do in the gym, then look at doing some compound lifting and speaking to somebody who can sort of advise you on a program. But things like deadlifts and squats are really good for balancing up your lower body and making sure that actually that knee pain will go away. And I had knee pain for years, always thought the problem was in my knees, but actually it was a quad issue, and now I compound lift twice a week. That has gone away. So that's how to cure your knees, really.
Yep. So that's preventative, but as I say, when you're on the track, if you've got poles, that can help take some of the shock out. I'm going to move to a 5-letter word now, and that's your groin. You're going to get sweaty. You're going to get sweaty, and just there are two things for this really: talcum powder or equivalent, plenty of it on your hinges, and having clean underwear. With the underwear, certainly when it's the colder places, use merino underwear, because that has got sort of an antibacterial effect. It doesn't smell, and you can wear it for days actually without actually getting any irritation. So make sure you've got the right your underwear. You haven't got to have merino underwear, but make sure you've got the right underwear, plenty of talcum powder, and just take care of that area, because it can become very sore.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is to just avoid cotton, isn't it? Like if you are going to sweat, just avoid cotton and try and find a material that's not cotton. And like you say, it doesn't smell, so you can wear it. It does dry out really quickly. You know, when you're on an 18-day EBC trip, so you're trekking for 13, 14 days, and you're restricted on your baggage, you might not have enough for 14 pairs of socks and 14 pairs of underwear. So you might, think about what you're going to take with you and the materials that you're going to use, really. Yeah. But I would definitely advise sort of merino style underwear for that purpose, or sports underwear, rather than your sort of cotton Calvin Kleins, really. Yeah.
Cotton can be a killer. It holds so much moisture. Now just let's sort of move on to exposed bits of the body generally, like arms and legs or whatever. Many of our treks go to altitude, you know that, and even if they don't, the Sahara trek is still very much out in the sun. The higher you get, the stronger the ultraviolet light, and that ultraviolet light is the light that will burn and cause you big problems. Keith and I, use a minimum sun protection factor 30 sun cream. I've got a recommendation, and this is not a bucket list. This is what I use, and I think Keith uses it as well now. I tend to use an alcohol-based sun lotion, because you put it on first thing in the morning, get dressed, 15 minutes later it's working, and you do not have to reapply it. Now, I've been up to 5,500 meters, really, really strong UV, and I have never ever burnt. The stuff I use, and it's just my own personal use, is this. It's called Calypso, once a day, and this is 30. You can get 40 and 50. You apply it in the morning, 15 minutes later it's working. So that's, and I put it all over my face, tops of my ears, back of my neck, all those places. If I'm wearing shorts in particular, it goes on the back of my knees, because that's the place that seems to catch on many people when you've got the sun behind you. So that's just if you're looking for something and you're not sure what to get, this is a version of it. It's an alcohol-based sun lotion. You don't have to use it, but what I like is you don't have greasy hands when you're working with your poles. You put it on once, you can just forget about it, and it certainly works for me anyway. So that's sun cream, and I've talked about the high UV. It's really important that you take that into consideration. Even on cloudy days, the UV can be high, but the higher you go, and many of our treks go above 3,000 meters. Many of them, that the UV becomes very, very powerful. So the next thing that is essential for looking after yourself is looking after your eyes. And for your eyes, you need a pair of sunglasses that are category 3. Category 4 is too extreme, but the categories are levels of, if you like, darkness or filter, levels of filter. 4 is for extreme conditions, but 3, certainly when you get above 3,000 meters, you need to be protecting your eyes with category 3. You might have a bit of a headache anyway from the altitude. You certainly do not want eye strain and burning headache from your eyes being poorly. So category 3, sunglasses. One of our clients was emailing me just recently, and we did a big search, and you don't have to spend a fortune. If there's a Decathlon near you, you can pick one up for £10-12, perfectly good. And in fact, if you're going on a long trek, a couple of cheap pairs is probably better, because we all lose sunglasses. If you can get wraparound types, this is a pair I wear here. You see they slightly wrap around the eye. It stops that stray light coming in. And again, I'm not trying to overcook it, but if you're on a trek where there's snow or ice, the light is bouncing off in all directions. And even if you're on one of our sort of water-based adventures, the same is true. So category 3, and try and get some sort of wraparound style rather than a flat style. Right, I'm on to head, Keith.
Yeah.
Okay. Peaked hat, I think it's essential again for the sun, and it's up to you what you do about your neck, but you will need midday on many of our treks, so you need to be covering your neck so you do not get sunstroke. And I've got a peaked hat that's got a sort of Sahara flap that comes down at the back, and it covers my neck, but you can have a bandana around your neck, but you need a peaked hat to stop, again, prevent the sun getting into your eyes too much, and also to cover your neck. I've talked about sunglasses.
I think from the other one there, Dave, just from that perspective is, thinking of things like the Sahara trek when you're out in the sun the whole time, like from women wearing vest tops, men wearing like vests when they're trekking. The last thing you really want to do is get sunburn on your back of your neck or your shoulders, especially if you're carrying a bag, because it certainly is uncomfortable at that point, and you kind of don't feel it sometimes until it's too late. So having that, like you say, I mean, and the buff works really well as well. If you don't want to wear a cap with a thing on the back, you can just put a buff around your neck or something like that, just to keep the sun off your neck at that point. But especially on the Sahara Desert trek, you've got no real way of cooling it down in the evening. You're sleeping in a tent in the middle of the Sahara Desert. We were lucky this year that we did have, we found water, and you could and it was very cold water, which made it quite nice to cool off. But the last thing you really want to do is have sunburn if you've got another week's trekking ahead of you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Keith. Just going back to hats, this is all on the equipment list anyway, but if you get yourself a warm hat, and you'll need one if you're doing one of the colder treks, just make sure it does cover your ears as well. That is a massive help towards comfort. I'm going to say just a couple of things now. I'll talk about a personal first aid kit, but just before I do that, Keith mentioned Everest Base Camp and the Annapurna treks. Those treks, which are long and high, and in fantastic scenery, but you're exposed in exposed conditions. One of the tips that I always give is copy your guide. If in the morning the guide sets up and he's got his buff and he's got it over his mouth and his nose, you do the same. It might feel uncomfortable, but you'll get used to it. And what he's doing is stopping that cold, dry air, drying out his throat, getting a very sore throat, then getting a cough, and the cough will be persistent. You might have heard of the Kumbu cough, for example. So one of the tips I've got is just, if your guide's walking along with sunglasses on, even though the sun is not out, you do the same. And if you do that, you'll be fine, absolutely fine. And the other tip I've got is copy me. If I use hand sanitizer, use hand sanitizer. There is a lot of communal eating goes on, and it's fantastic to sit out in the wilds in Morocco on a rug, eating wonderful food. But we're all sharing from the same big plate, putting onto our own plates, obviously, but hand sanitizer is important. And if you're in the Sahara Desert and you're going, when you go to the loo, you're going to be going to a hole in the ground. And when you come out, there will be soap and water in a bowl, but again, you can see you're not home. You've got to really have to look after your hands. If you do that and you don't get sick, it just makes the trek so brilliant. If you do get sick with a bad stomach and you've got to walk the next day, you just don't want it to happen. And I just try to make sure it never happens on the treks I take. So I
mean, from our perspective, Dave, our job's just got a whole lot easier since March, isn't it? Because people are so used to having to wash their hands and sanitize their hands everywhere they go that we kind of it should be more on people's agenda now. But like Dave said, when you finish a Toubkal trek or a Kilimanjaro trek at the end of the day, you go in, you have tea, they bring out a big tray of popcorn, a big tray of biscuits, everyone's got their hands in grabbing it. You imagine if someone has got a bit of a bug at that point, it's going to spread between the group pretty quickly. So, we do take the mick out of Dave a little bit for his hand sanitizer regime, but it is completely true what he says. And, you've paid to go on one of these trips, and the last thing you want to do is spend your time then in a toilet. And especially if you're somewhere where the toilets aren't very nice. Or there
aren't any.
Or there aren't any, exactly.
You're halfway between tea houses and it's a rock in the middle of nowhere,
exactly. So hand sanitizer is really important. Another one I want to cover is lips, Dave, when we were getting to the head. It's one thing that people really do forget are the lips. And if you are, the number of people on a Kilimanjaro trip, you always know who's just been up Kilimanjaro because, their lips are massive when they come back down because they've ignored looking after them. The sun really does burn the lips really easily if you haven't protected them. So taking a strong sun cream that can actually go on the lips is really important. And then also at the same time, having something that you can put on in the evening just to add moisture back in as well is super important. I remember a couple of years ago doing a Kilimanjaro trek, and then we went on safari afterwards, and literally the whole group, everyone was fine apart from everyone had burnt lips, and that was the uncomfortable part. So it is one thing that really does get ignored. So please think about your lips as we get that point.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I've got Lip Salve, which is Sun Protection 50, and that works.
Yeah, I mean, you think about when people go skiing, they get the coloured ones that they put on their lips when they're skiing. Yeah. Well, actually, if you're on an Everest Base Camp trek or a Kilimanjaro trek or a Toubkal trek, you're above where you are where you're skiing, and you're not putting that same protection on your lips at the altitude you're at. So think about lips in that point. Yeah.
Now, I just want to talk about personal first aid kits. Again, it's on our kit list. It's important to have your own first aid kit with basic things in. Again, it's on the list, but I just want to mention a couple of things. Whatever it is you take when you get a headache, and some people don't take anything, but if you can take something, certainly on the high altitude trips, you will at night perhaps get a bit of a headache, certainly early in the morning. Just make sure you've got something in your first aid kit that you can take if you, it can be quite debilitating. What no one will appreciate is you waking up at 2 a.m. saying, have you got an aspirin? Have you got a paracetamol? So that is an important thing to do if you can. And the other thing I want to just talk about is I don't use them at all in England, but I do take with me, again, some throat lozenges, because the dry throat, you don't want to start a cough ever. And if you get a bit of a dry throat because the air's dry and, maybe you've been talking too much like me or laughing too loud, whatever, but you're out or you've left your mouth uncovered early in the morning from a very early start, those lozenges just to keep the throat under control. It's not a big issue, but again, it's just something that can, certainly on the higher treks and the longer treks, can just be like an insurance policy. I think I'm there with self-care in terms of things I do, things we take.
I think insect repellent.
Yes,
that one. Obviously, a lot of our trips, if you think about Africa, you need to think about malaria protection when you go to Africa. Obviously, from a malaria perspective, the sort of advice has changed over the years now, because whenever you go, you kind of advise that when you start your trek, you don't need to take depending on which malaria medication you're on, you don't need to continue taking it because you're not at a malaria risk at that point, because you're above 1,500 meters and it's too cold for them then at that point. But it's one thing that I would advise you researching before you go and do a trip is actually what malaria medication am I going to take. Some malaria medication's really cheap, but you do have to continue taking it for kind of a month when you get home. There are other, and you've got to kind of take it for quite a long period before you actually get into country. Malarone, for example, you only take a day before you go, and you take it 7 days when you get back. So it's slightly more expensive to buy it in the first instance, but it's not such a hassle when you do get home. But obviously insect repellent is really important because you don't want to be bitten anyway. And you've kind of got two choices with insect repellent, really. You've got, the ones that have a very high DEET content in them, which a lot of people don't actually like. And then obviously now there are other ones out there which are kind of better for you in the sense of, is it the Avon one that gets a really good review, Dave?
It does, yeah. There's an Avon. I think it's a body lotion of some description, but it seems to work. People like that. Yeah,
a lot of people use it. A lot of the women on the treks that we've done, there was a lot of women on the Sahara trek that we just recently did that had that one. Yep. I've always used the Life Systems DEET one that you buy from Cotswold, and it comes in a bottle. That's the one that I've always used. So, but it is pretty potent DEET in the sense of that. But I don't ever get any issues with it. The other one is obviously that we haven't talked about is water, and I know we mention it quite a lot in all the different ones. But looking at what you're drinking is really important. And obviously you've got to look at what you're drinking from your health perspective, but then there's now also the environmental issue with bottled water everywhere that people are trying to reduce. Obviously on some of our treks, it's very difficult to not be able to get so for example, on our Sahara trek, for instance, they do take bottled water on the camels because we're going into the Sahara Desert for 5 days. Although we did find wells that we could top up our filtered bottles from. Yeah. other people were still using the bottled water. But there should be no reason now on like an Everest Base Camp trek or a Tootcow trek or any of those ones that we need to use bottled water anymore, because if you do take a filtered bottle with you, you can just go and fill it up from a tap or a tap or a well or something like that. So for us, we're advising people to take filtered bottles with them now to reduce the fact that actually you don't have to go and buy plastic. They're also quite, they will save you some money as well, because water gets considerably expensive the further you go up on a trek. If you look at an Everest Base Camp trek, what you pay for a bottle of water at the bottom compared to what you pay for a bottle of water at the top, it is two completely different prices in that sense. But obviously buying a filtered bottle allows you to fill it up wherever you want, and it also means you kind of don't need to carry as much water with you as well, because the fact that you can just fill it up from a tap or from a well, or you just fill it up when you empty it. Whereas if you go and buy bottled water, you need to start your day off with 3 litres of water in your bag, because you're not going to get another chance to buy any more water until that evening or whatever. So I think water to go bottles or filtered bottles are definitely the way to go. Yeah,
I agree totally. I was just thinking, one thing we haven't covered, but I've made a big assumption here, is that people have read a list and that they've had the appropriate inoculations for whatever country we go to. And the only bit of advice I've got for that, I go to a travel clinic and I find that a lot cheaper, a lot easier than actually talking to my doctor about it. And I think many doctors now just don't do travel inoculations. They want you to go to a travel clinic, but they do.
Yeah, they don't like doing them, and I think the way to go now is definitely down the travel clinic route. And I think from that perspective, like, they're doing it all the time. They've generally got all of the vaccinations in stock because that's what they're doing. Whereas your doctor generally will have to order them in because they haven't got a constant supply in there anyway. If you're traveling with us, we have an app, and on our app, it gives you a link to the government website that tells you what you currently need. We're not medical professionals. We can't tell you what vaccinations you need. So, for us, we send you to the government website where it's constantly being updated and you're getting the advice as to when exactly you need it. So that's all we do as a company. Obviously, quite a lot of them are, rabies isn't a necessity. In a lot of countries, it's there if you want to have it, and it's your decision whether you want to have it. The tricky one generally is the yellow fever one, is the one that causes people the issues. For example, you don't need a yellow fever vaccination if you're going into Tanzania, but you do need one if you're going into if you've come into Tanzania from Kenya. And obviously, if you actually end up staying more than a certain time at the airport in Kenya, when you arrive in Tanzania, they'll ship you off and make you pay to have it there and then if you haven't already had it done. So it might be one you want to think about getting before you go. And whereas you used to have it topped up, now it lasts indefinitely now. And that's what seems to have happened with a lot of vaccinations now, is you used to have to get them done regularly, but now they seem to last you for life now. So it's just a case of going, see what you've got. At the travel clinic, they give you a little book of what they've given you, the dates you've got it. So you've got that almost like a travel diary then of, you can check what you've already had, because, we all forget what we've had or when we last had it or whatever. So you get your yellow book, keep hold of that, travel, keep it with you. And then that's just proof then that you have got a yellow fever certificate in your book, really. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we're pretty much there, aren't we?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else there from looking after yourself from that sense. Obviously, if you've got any questions on any of our trips or anything else that's not related to what we're talking about, then you can ask those. We're more than happy to answer any questions you've got. It doesn't even have to be on our trips. If we can answer it, we'll try and answer it at that point. But I mean, just a couple of quick ones from us. Well, if anyone wants to ask us any questions, if our latest edition of the Bucket Lister is due to arrive in our offices today. This is our last edition, and so if you haven't got this one, you can download it online. We do print a load, and you can request to have them sent to you if you want one. Obviously, the Bucket Lister magazine's normally packed with loads of trip reports, and things of what we're doing, what we've done. But obviously, for the last 3 months, we haven't actually been anywhere or done anything. So it was quite hard for us to get the new one of these written and actually fill it up. So for the next one, we've written like a Kilimanjaro special, which talks about all of our Kilimanjaro trips, all the add-ons to the trips. So it basically just talks about Tanzania and what Tanzania has to offer as a country. It's probably my favourite country to visit, and one that I've done the most. So that's what we've done this edition on. So you can go onto our website, go onto the Bucket Lister page, download the last one. You can request the new one if you want it, and it will get posted out to you when we start packing them tomorrow. We're going to do the competition. Someone just asked when we're drawing the competition. We are going to draw the competition in a minute when we finish the call, and we are going to. There'll be another competition launching today or tomorrow as well. So this competition that we've just launched that we've just ran it for 2 weeks. We had over 4,000 entries into it. So it's it was quite a popular one. It's for one of our new trips that we're launching next year, which is completely different to anything that we kind of already do. So it's our surf and yoga retreat in Morocco. And we were getting lots of people who kind of wanted to do group travel, but they didn't want to go trekking for days on end. So we were just literally looking at so that was the trip that we were offering for the competition. So it's a chance to go away to Morocco and be part of that trip. So you have yoga in the morning and then a surf lesson, and then you have the afternoon then to either continue going surfing or chill out on the beach, or there's some day trips in there to go and visit Essaouira and other places as well. You also get to sort of explore Marrakesh a bit before and after the trip, because we arrive in Marrakesh and then and go from there. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Someone's asking me a question in the office. And there we go. So that's that competition. We're going to be running another one as well from there. Another thing I just wanted to say before we draw the competition is that we've just basically pretty much changed our website and how people book on the website. Lots of people were asking for, they didn't want to go on the group flights. They wanted to fly from a different airport to what we were doing. So now if you go onto any of our trips on our website, the cost now is for a land only cost. And then when you click through to the next page, if you want to include the flight onto it, you can then add the flight at that point. It also makes it super easy to add on the extensions as well, because whereas beforehand we couldn't add the extensions on at booking. So things like the Safari or the Zanzibar extension, or when we go to Morocco, we offer a sunrise hot air balloon flight. All those things used to have to be added on extra at a later date, and it was kind of a bit of an issue. So we've kind of spent the lockdown period. Working out how we can add all that on and change the booking process. So that kind of went live over the weekend. There's still a few little bits to do on it. Someone's asked how they get a copy of the Bucket Lister sent to them. If you just bear with me 2 seconds, I'll just get a link up and put a link in the comments where you can get the Bucket Lister. We kind of do 4 a year, we kind of, when lockdown started, we kind of fell a little bit behind. So this one's actually coming out. The last one only came out kind of 6 weeks ago, but this one actually brings us back in line for our 4 year. So I've just put a link in the comments there where you can grab yourself a copy of the bucket lister, and we can get that sent out to you, and you can join the list. So I think that only brings us on now to kind of doing, no one else has asked us any other questions. So I think we will do the, and I need to work out how on this new piece of software, Dave, I can share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. So like I say, we had 4,000 people enter the competition.
Right.
We're now going to see who's won by clicking this button here, and it will select our winner for us. And here we go. So, and the winner of the competition is, he says as he clicks it, there. So the winner is Elliot Hill.
Elliot.
So yeah, Elliot is actually one of our customers already. So this was a new piece of software that we've just started to use, and how it works is actually really good. So the more people that you share it with, and if your friends enter, you also get an extra entry into the competition for everyone that books as well. So we're going to keep using this piece of software because it does get more entries into the competition for us, and also it gives you more chance to do it. So Elliot actually had quite a few extra entries into the competition there. He wasn't the highest by any chance. Guess who the highest was, Dave? Can you imagine who the highest person with the most entries would have been in the competition?
Katie Rod.
No, it wasn't Katie. Katie came in 4th place.
Oh, who then?
Oh, come on, you've got to get it. It's so obvious.
Oh, no.
He's got a brother.
Oh, Deck.
Yeah. Deck was ahead of the leaderboard, looking at it there, that he had the most entries into the competition. So, so like I said, we will be emailing out another competition. We're going to actually do a Toot Cow competition. It is our most popular trip, and probably like mine and Dave's favourite. I mean, we love Morocco. It's such a great trip. We can get out there. You know, I always say to people that Morocco gives you the biggest culture shock for the shortest amount of air miles. I mean, you're on a plane for 3 hours, and when you arrive, it's just completely different to what you've ever experienced. And the trekking is just amazing as well. So we will be launching a Toot Cow competition today. And obviously, with that competition we just run, that was for 2 places. So Elliot gets to bring a friend as well. And we'll do the same. Well, you can ask him, Dave, and we'll do the same for the Morocco competition as well. So for the Toot Cow one. So it will be for 2 places onto the thing. We actually did get a bit of negative publicity, Dave, on the competition. I saw quite a few comments on there of people going, "Oh yeah, these companies always run competitions, but you never hear who the winner is." So you know, we can say that, yeah, we do run competitions, and actually if you go down through the videos on our Facebook page, we do always announce the winners on a Facebook Live. So they are there for people to see who the winner is, and quite often we always draw the winner out when we're actually not even in the country. So quite often when we're away on a trip somewhere, we will actually you actually picked out the winner once in France, didn't you, Dave? When we were
right.
For a winner. So when we do run the competitions, we always actually announce who the winner is. So I know there are probably companies out there that don't do that, and you never find out who the winner is. But if you do watch our Facebook Lives, and we will always do the winner at the end of our Tuesday show that we're currently doing. So, I mean, if you have got anything you want us to do our shows on, if you want to put it in the comments box, if you think there's a topic that you want us to talk about, or because eventually kind of I think we will run kind of short of things to talk about and go on. So if there are any things you want want to know about or think we should do one of these episodes on, then please put it in the comments of this video, because we will need ideas soon. We haven't decided. We haven't decided what next week's topic is yet, David.
No. All right.
So that's it. So if no one's got any other questions for us, we'll bring today's show to an end. Congratulations to Elliot, and thank you everyone for entering the competition, for watching today, and we'll catch up with you all next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.